today's video, I want to talk about the issues that I have had with the Dutch language. I'm going to combine all of the things that made Dutch that extra little bit difficult to overcome, and I've made heaps of videos on this topic, and this is kind of putting them all in one place. And I'm also going to run over some tips to try and speed up the process, try and help you really grasp the Dutch language and do it quickly. Every single language has its own reasons and issues that make it difficult to learn. These are for the Dutch language and probably for other languages, but these are the ones that I have found for me in Dutch as an English speaker. This video is sponsored today by Italki. I have used Italki as a platform to learn Dutch. I have speed up the fluency process. If you want to become fluent in Dutch, Italki is the place to do that. Italki has a really high quality of teachers that give you one-on-one personalized lessons. And because they're so specific to you, they estimate that about 19 hours of Italki lessons is the equivalent of doing an entire semester at university or college for that language. They are so set up to exactly your learning needs and exactly what you need to learn the language for. They're also super convenient because you can literally do it at home. They have a massive range of teachers. When I first started my office job and I had to speak in Dutch, I had never worked in an office before. So I took a bunch of lessons catered specifically to office vocabulary and being able to book appointments, being able to answer the phone, things that I had never had to do in Dutch before. And I could go online, browse through a variety of different Dutch teachers, give them my issue that I was having, which was office vocabulary and an office setting with the language, and choose who I wanted to work with. And those lessons were specifically catered to exactly what I needed them for. I found this a super efficient way to learn. Instead of having to run through practice scenarios with my partner, I could do all this through my computer at home. So it was super, super handy, and it really brought my Dutch up to the level that it needed to be at for work. The thing Italki are doing this month is that if you buy your first lesson in September, you go into the draw to win 3 months of lessons for free. There's going to be 40 people who are chosen that are going to get the opportunity to have up to 305 euros worth of lessons over a 3-month period. If you want to get $5 off your purchase, you can use the link in my description at the checkout, and when you spend $10, you get $5 off. The first thing that I still stumble on, the first thing that I very much have an issue with is prepositions. Prepositions in the Dutch language are super specific, and I always default to using the English preposition. So saying things like, I sit on a bus. I'm on the bus. I'm calling someone, I'm on the bus. You're not on the bus in Dutch, you're in the bus, which physically, logically, it makes sense. And I cannot get it out of my head that I'm in the bus instead of on the bus. In English, we have the preposition at, which seems really easy to use. One word, lots of different applications. In Dutch, however, you have 3 different ways to really express the word at. You've got op, bij, and aan. So these are the 3 different ways that you can say at. They all have slight differences and can inflect completely different meanings. One of my first jobs, I was working in an office space and someone had come in for their appointment, and I had directed them to take a place at the table. In Dutch, I had technically told them to go and sit on top of the table because I had mixed around these 3 different ways to say at. So things like this, although it's not the end of the world, they mean completely different things. So learning the prepositions, learning exactly which ones match with which verb and which object is going to save you a lot of time if you learn this early on. Learn Dutch with Kim does a really good video series, so head over to her YouTube channel. I use her videos a lot when I need grammar refreshing, so I know that she's got a great series on prepositions. The next thing that really bugs me about the Dutch language is their vowel sounds. The vowel sounds, once you've heard them, once you've practiced, you practice the shape of your mouth, you practice the tone. There's a lot that goes into learning the diphthongs and the vowel sounds in the Dutch language. I used to have friends that recorded themselves saying sentences, and then I would listen to those sentences over and over and over again and then try and repeat them. That comes with any language. That's not specific to Dutch. My thing with the Dutch vowel sounds is that if you get them slightly wrong, like a little bit wrong, like you say O instead of ow, people will pretend they don't understand you. People will be direct about it, pretend they have no idea what you're saying. And I think there's a difference because English people are very accommodating to a variety of accents. A lot of people speak English as a second language. I'm exposed to a lot of people who have varying levels of English and varying accents when they speak English. I think my ear is trained to really understand the concept of what someone is saying. In Dutch, I don't know if you have this to the same degree. So making slight mistakes in your vowel pronunciation can mean a totally different word. It can have a completely different meaning. And then people they just don't understand you. They'll make you repeat it. You don't know what mistake you've made because to you, you've pronounced the word correctly. So practicing these sounds, practicing the tweeklanken is going to improve your Dutch tenfold. People are going to understand you far more clearly. People are going to be able to break down what it is you mean, even if you make slight and very subtle mistakes. So this is going to be one of those like key foundational things that you should be practicing really, really, really early on. I still very much make mistakes. I very often say huid instead of hout. So skin instead of wood. Again, they mean two completely different things. And sometimes if I'm speaking fast, the opposite sound comes out to what I mean. So it's just these things that are really going to make that difference to letting your Dutch shine. Now, a super common thing that occurs in the Dutch language is the use of idioms. So using these sayings and uitspraken, I think that's what they're called in Dutch, intertwined with day-to-day language. We have this in English, especially in Australia. There's lots of room for sayings and slang words and all of those things that make a language colourful. The Dutch are notorious for using them. There are Facebook pages dedicated to these very hilarious literal translations of these idioms. I've mentioned a few of them in a video why these words exist in Dutch. But even more basic ones, so things like ik hou je in de gaten. I'm holding you in the holes. It makes no sense, but it is like the English equivalent of saying I'm keeping an eye on you, or you can ik hou het in de gaten. So you're keeping an eye on something else, or you're checking in with it regularly. These things are said all the time. And the first time you hear them, they make no sense. They make absolutely no sense. Learn them. They will make a difference to how quickly you can understand people and what people are referring to when they use these sayings. Now that I'm used to these sayings, I very often, if I'm speaking English, will try and work out, or I say the little translation of the Dutch version of the saying because it doesn't exist in English. So I have this like reverse, oh, I wish that saying existed in English now. I very often can translate an English saying into Dutch and no one knows what I'm talking about. So I have this like reverse sayings that exist in both languages separately that don't cross over. I've seen these very hilarious videos on YouTube from a football coach somewhere that has been using idioms and then literally translates them into English in an interview. If I can find the link, I'll put it in the description box below, but it's very, very funny. Another interesting feature of the Dutch language is swearing. Swearing in Dutch is super abrupt and very rude if you translate it. Essentially, you wish diseases on people. That's how you insult and swear, but you curse the weather with diseases. And if you stub your toe, and very small things that happen is usually responded to with a disease. And at first I found this an incredibly strange concept. In English, we use bodily fluids, I guess. And in Dutch, still to do with the body, but diseases. They have varying levels of offensiveness. Obviously things like using cancer there's a lot of people that are affected by the disease, so it's very much frowned upon. If someone is teaching you how to say cancer in Dutch, they're teaching you a bad word, and it is very much frowned upon in society. Most of them are diseases that don't affect people anymore, so things like typhoid and teething. What can I say? The Dutch love a good swear word, especially if it's something to do with a disease. I've made enough videos on dirt and het. It's a battle. It's an ongoing issue. It's a thing. I'm not going to go into it here. Just know dirt and het, literally the most irritating thing about the Dutch language. Dutch people are helpful. They want you to know that if you can't speak Dutch, they can very much understand and speak English, and they will let that be known. If you make small mistakes, they will very quickly swap back into English. This can be very, very helpful, and it's extremely nice when you move to a country and you can still make connections and make friends with people in your own language. However, they're so helpful that people live here for 5, 7, 10 years and still don't speak the Dutch language. The best way to combat this is to continue to speak in Dutch even when people start speaking English. Be aggressive about it, and you will have to be aggressive about it if you want this tactic to work. Keep speaking Dutch at every chance you get, even when people respond to you in English. Another way to speed up your Dutch learning process is to establish Dutch as the language of that relationship. So if you approach people in Dutch and you continue to speak Dutch, it will be a habit that you always speak to that person in Dutch. I have this now with my partner. We very rarely communicate with each other in English because we have set a foundation that we speak Dutch with each other, and that's just how it is. However, with my daughter, she's being raised bilingual, I only speak English with her. We are setting that foundation that that relationship is built on a certain language. And you have the opportunity to do this too with the relationships and friendships that you have here in the Netherlands. Establishing Dutch as the language of that relationship will be the number one thing that enables you to practice as much as possible, and enabling these people to have an influence on your Dutch. They will also feel more obliged to correct you and help you and teach you new words and all of the things that come with learning a language. I cannot recommend this highly enough. Speak Dutch as much as you can to as many people as you can all the time. The benefit of all of this, of course, is feeling at home. The Netherlands has very, very much become my home. Being stuck in Australia for over a year, still every day, this is where I want it to be. The Netherlands for me is where my life is, and I attribute that mostly to being able to speak the language and feeling like I belong here. I can communicate with everyone, mostly depending on if they come from Friesland, and I don't speak Fries. So there is something really nice to be able to sit on public transport and hear other people's conversations. It makes you feel like you're a local. It makes you feel like you live here with purpose, that you belong here, that you can also swear back at tourists on bikes because you can speak the language. Let me know in the comments below, what is the weirdest thing about the Dutch language for you, or what has been the hardest thing for you to learn? I'd love to hear it because more often than not, I've usually had the same issue. I always love reading your examples of funny things that you've heard in Dutch and then being translated back into English. So if you've got any of those, also make sure that you drop them in the comments below. It's like one of my favorite things to read through. That is it for me. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.